Okay, I think we're live. I think we're live, everybody. Hi. Um, Gosh, where do I start? I feel out of practice going live because I am. Um, my name is Michelle Adamas. For those of you that are new here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome. I'm so happy to be on here with all of you. And today, I think, hi, Jody. Thank you so much for saying hello. So today, I'm sure when I posted this event, y'all are like, I mean, if you know me, you're like, what is she up to now? And but there's a method to my madness, and it's been requested before to show you how I make my own collage papers. But I wanted to wait until I knew that I could share with you that making your own papers, one, is really a lot of fun. Two, it's not just for collage or junk journals or something like that. Think of the small decoupage projects that you do. You can do those with your own papers. And this is going to start off a small series. I've got um, it could go for 10 weeks, but I think I'm going to condense it down a little bit and then we'll go from there. But we're going to start out with making some what I call like not handmade papers because we're not using pulp, but we're going to make our own decorative papers out of other papers. And then we are going to move into the next part of the series, which is to begin starting to make things with those papers. And yes, junk journaling and collage and all of that is a beautiful way to use them, but there's more. And so I'll be sure to share that with you. But I do want to get started on the papers, and let's do it. You're going to need a few supplies. You'll be amazed at what you can pull up around your house to use. And so let me just say that another reason to do them is because no one piece of paper really turns out exactly the same as the other, and you're left with something that is uniquely yours. And so for furniture, I think because of the size that I'm doing them in, Jody, it works best for small projects, and I'll show you that. This is not something that I mass produce or like send off to a printer to have turned into decoupage tissue. But I think for small projects, and I'll show you some of those. I've got some in the works right now. So anyway, without, I don't know, let's just get started. Okay, let's get started. All right. Let's first talk about some of the papers that you can do these techniques on. And I like to use a variety, and I like to use them for different purposes. So one is just old book pages. It doesn't have to be an old book, but you can go to the thrift store and get old book pages. Book pages as they are beautiful for a lot of projects, but they're also really fun for this type of creating. Another one of my favorites is tissue paper, and we're not only going to use paint and a jelly print or a jelly plate for tissue paper, but we're going to do something else that's pretty cool. What I love about painted tissue papers, let me give you a couple of examples. This is just a piece of tissue paper that I've created, and what I love about it is that even though this is painted, if I use let's see if I've got that other example. Tissue paper is going to really show, as we all know, if we decoupage, tissue paper is going to show what we put behind it. And so I really love the translucency of it. So that's a fun one. So the tissue paper is great. This is like a mulberry or a rice paper. I really enjoy the texture of this. So we'll do a print on that. Another is deli paper. Deli, think of what people wrap the sandwiches in when you go to pick up a sandwich at a deli shop. So it's got a little bit of a slickness to it. And then there's also just plain copy paper. It doesn't have to be fancy copy paper, just the most inexpensive copy paper that you can get. You can also do heavier papers like mixed media and that type of thing. But we're going to go ahead and start playing and creating a little bit. I want to share that we will be, if you don't have a jelly plate, you don't need to go out and get one. If you are going to think that you're going to use a lot of this, then I would definitely consider it. I'm going to be working on an 8x10, but you can also create your own papers without a jelly plate. So I thought we could just make a few of those first, and I'll show you how to do that. So I have just a little palette over here. And when you're starting out creating papers, I think it's really fun to start with a limited palette. Hi, Cheryl, how are you? My camera is going to give me a little bit of a fit, so I'm going to sit here for a second and let it readjust. I don't know why it's doing that, but anyway, I'm going to be using 2 colors of acrylic paint. I'm using a Winsor blue and a cadmium yellow is in here. And really, of course, that's going to give me 3 colors because the blue and the yellow are going to make green. And then I like to, for different values or different hues of these colors that I make, I like to add either black or white. And so this is all we're going to be using as far as the paint goes. So I'm going to also want a brayer for this. And then I have a few like little mark making tools. I've got another brayer in here. I have a tissue paper roller, a few palette knives. I've got a little squeegee. I think they call it a catalyst, but I call it a squeegee, y'all. And then I've got some stippling. I've got a little basting brush. I have some sponge daubers. And then I also have some bubble wrap. I have a little wood cutout that I purchased in a package of them at the Dollar Tree. And I went ahead and taped it to a piece of thin mount so it kind of works like a stamp. So we'll be doing some mark making. I also have a little piece of fun foam that I cut out with a die cut. And this makes an interesting mark as well. And I've got some stencils. And I've got a piece of, I don't even know where this came from, but the minute I saw it, I just loved it because it's got all those circles in it. And so I use that as a stencil. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with something really basic. And I'm going to show you that we can just do, why does this not want to open? Lord. Okay, here we go. All right. So ask your questions as you go along. I'm just going to put out a little bit of blue here. I'm going to put out a little bit of the yellow. And again, that's just going to help me get a nice second color. I'm going to put a little bit of black down here. Woo, I must have really done a number on these when I was using them the last time because they are super tight. And then I'm just going to put some white. So it's really just 2 colors and black and white. And so you can do, like, I love blues. And so that's what I'm choosing to do with this. But you might prefer warmer colors. So you might go into the reds or something like that. So really there are lots of different things we can do. I'm going to start with this deli paper. We're going to go ahead and do this one. And I'm going to turn this around. And really, I'm going to pick up some of this and some of my black to make a dark color. And I'll pick up a little bit more of that blue. I'll probably go through quite a bit of paint today. But you can start out, just to get over the blank page, you can start out by just rolling some color. And here I'm getting lots because where it's not really mixing, I'm getting that. You can just start to roll out. And even if you don't think this is an attractive paper, that's okay. When you put them together and you use them for different things, that is where it gets really fun. So it's just, it could be a background paper. I like working in the same colors as I'm doing this because it does create a series of papers that I can have to work with that are all kind of in that same family. So this isn't dry yet, but another thing that I could do if I wanted to add something to this is just to even use a little bit of bubble wrap. This happens to be, it's just a bubble wrap from an Amazon package that I received. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of the yellow and the green. When I'm jelly plate printing, I'm a little more careful about my color mixing. But for the purposes of this, I just want to show you that even with something as simple as, and this is going to be a little wet, so I don't want to go too, but you can just use your jelly plate print. And again, I'm working on wet paint. Pick that up. And you can even then just press it gently with your hands, and you're going to get a little bit of a mark. Come down here, you might be able to see it a little bit better. I'll put a little heavier pressure on it. And then you get those marks. Another really fun thing to do is we can just take a little dauber, and we're not really going for aesthetics on this right now. We're going for just ways that you might be able to do this. So another thing I could do is just add some dots with a dauber. This is one of my favorites, and I like that it picks up a little bit of that color, so I'm getting another color. And I promise you, we're going to use these papers and you're going to see them in projects. Yes, I use them in a journal and for collage and for when I do the encaustic collage as well. But I also like to use them on more, let's call them more traditional, projects that we don't think of as really mixed media. So I can just dauber along here and do that. I might pick up a little bit of yellow and come in, so you can add color to those dots as well. You can just keep layering and layering and layering. And so this is a sheet of deli paper. And so it'll go well with the other colors because I'm using them in the same family. So for example, I have this paper. This is one we're going to do on a jelly print, and I could use this paper that I've just created with that. Also, here's a lighter one that's a little sheerer. So you can do things like this. We'll just go ahead and mark this one up a little bit too. And I'm doing this because if you don't have a jelly plate, it does not mean that you cannot make your own papers. You can even see the marks that I'm making in here. So I'm going to get some of the lighter color here and just pick up, and I can just kind of keep going and adding to that. And this is just a tissue paper roll, and I'm gonna bet that we've all got those. So it's just funny when you can go someplace and then just look at your supplies in a different way. Then you can, I know some people worry that, oh my gosh, I can't save everything, and I don't either. I don't save 50 tissue paper rolls or anything like that. I just will save a couple, and I like just using them in a different way. And it's just an easy thing to do. So another thing that you can do, so here I've just added some more marks with this, and I'll let that dry. But here's another thing that you can do is I have a little glue spreader. I bet a lot of us have these little glue spreaders that are fun, right? But you could just take something that you already have, look around your in your craft supplies and see what you already have. And there are things, just making marks in just random marks. So you can just make, it doesn't have to be anything that makes sense, right? It's kind of like scraping, or you can use a palette knife to do this type of thing. And I'll just put a little on here, and maybe I'm just going to scrape, right? I'm just going to loosely scrape and just add a little interest on my paper. Now, the one thing that I am really excited to show you is that your papers don't have to be a one and done. And that's what we're going to be working on as we go through this. And so is how to take your paper and print it on other things that will allow you to extend the use of your papers. And so I'll go ahead and tell you right now that one of the things that I do, if I really, really like a paper and I think I want to use it again, then I'm probably going to let this dry completely, and I'll make a copy of it on my inkjet printer. And then I have that printable to use for something else. So that's the first way that I'll show you. But so there are just so many ways that you can do this. Another thing that you could do is to stamp into, I'm using white, a lot of white on this, just so you can see how this works. So this is just a foam, a little foamy that I used my die cut. I have, oh my gosh, you guys, because I used to, like, you know, scrapbook and do cards like when my kids were little and all of that. And so here's another thing that you can do is just like make your own stamps with like a die cut and a foam cutter. And so you can see how that comes out. So the possibilities are just endless. And then you can pick up some of the paint like this, but you can see that we don't have to have a jelly plate, but I love the jelly plate. And you have a small box for mark making tools. Yes, I love that. It just, when you find something interesting, like, you know, I love the things that I find at the dollar store. And of course, there are traditional things like stencils and things like that. But this is just an example to lay paint on paper and play and have fun. You can do what I do. Don't have any expectation for the outcome and just give it a try. Take 1 or 2 sheets of paper and just play with them. Play with different techniques, even if it's on the same one, and just play with it. Okay. So that's just that. But now I'm going to set this aside to dry. And the other thing that I wanted to show you that I think is really fun, this is a piece of plain white tissue. I'm so sorry for my camera. We're going to give it a little rest here. Thank you, camera. And show you this. I'm going to keep a hand down here and see if that doesn't help. Other little mark making things that you may not traditionally think of are to use modeling paste or paint on a piece of tissue. And what I like about this is I've got a few examples here. So these are some little collages that I did. I did 4 of them with some of my handmade papers. And then this is modeling paste on a piece of tissue. The tissue disappears and only shows the background. And then I just used a little black marker to highlight them. So the foam for mark making, yes. It's just so many things, little daubers, jar lids, all of those things make it so simple to do. So one of the things that you can do also is, it requires no paint. It requires a modeling paste, or it requires something like a, oh, what could you use? You could use joint compound if you wanted to, or spackle, something like that. But I do like the molding paste because if I'm going to use this on, you know, something that I want to remain as permanent as possible, then I can know that the molding paste is going to hold up really well. I think the joint compound too, you know, would too. So let's just go ahead and use this little piece that I have right here. I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to hold it in place a little bit. Y'all, I better do up my sleeves because I've been on a roll with getting things all over myself. I want to just go ahead and scrape that on to my tissue paper. Now you could do this technique also, you know, in your journal if you want to, but I did it on those little collage pieces. And I love the texture that they add. And so I'm just going to lift that up, and then you can see once this dries, I now have this little bit that I can add some texture to something that I'm working on. And then this tissue paper is going to go away, and all that's going to be left are the white circles that I created. So I did that on a few. I just used that same little bit of circles. So I love them too, Cheryl. They're really fun to make. And so that's another thing that you can do is work with a variety of transparencies in your papers, and you're going to have so many possibilities and so many more options. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how the tissue paper, it's wet right now and I just ruined it. But anyway, so your tissue is going to show through, and this white part of the tissue is it's just going to become clear. And so all that would show through is this background paper that we created. So there you go. But let's get out the jelly plate and get that a play, because that is a really fun thing to do. I don't know if I'm making any sense over here, but I'm gonna try to keep myself from getting paint everywhere. All right, so I am working with a jelly plate that is an 8 by 10. Oh, you guys, I'm so sorry for the camera. And so it's going to settle here. All right, here we go. So my jelly plate, they come in a variety of sizes. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them as small as like little circles. I think they make ginormous ones. But this is the one that I have. I'm trying to get this little tiny hair off of here. So again, you're going to want to I like to use a brayer for this. And I'm going to start out by this is one of my favorite papers. So this is the Numbers stencil by Roycycled Treasures. And I want to think about how my numbers might show up. So I'm going to go, I don't know, do I want to go backwards or do I just want to do it like this? I'm just going to go like this. It doesn't matter. I can always mirror it later if I need to. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my stencil in place. You could lay paint on first, but this is how I'm going to do this paper. I'm going to get a little bit more of my Winsor blue. I'm going to take that, just the same dauber that I used. I'm going to daub it off a little bit, get some black on there, get some blue. I want to make a really like a dark navy with that. So I'm adding the black to the Winsor blue, and that's a nice color. So I've kind of tested it there. So I'm just going to dauber in here. And again, this is just acrylic paint. I found that if I brayer the paint over, I still end up going and filling in when I stencil. So I just thought I would try it like this and see. And we can get a little variation in our color. So I'm just going to, maybe it'll also help you like look at your stencils in a different way, right? I think when we have supplies, for me, I've gotten to the point where it's just, what do I already have and how can I use it differently? And then what can I do with that? For me, the idea isn't just to create a bunch of papers that I never do anything with. I think I've got enough things sometimes like that in my stash. And so I've really been looking at the supplies that I have and how I can use them in a different way. And so this just happens to be one of my favorite things. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm dabbing that. You could go over it again if you want it to be, more solid. I hope I'm making sense. And how many of you have used a jelly plate before? I'd love to know. So this one's got a little more black in it. And we may be able to get a couple of prints out of this. Excuse me. So I'm just going to come down here. We'll get a little bit more, get a little bit of that black, a little bit of that blue. Okay, so I didn't do the whole stencil, but we're going to go ahead and lift this up. And so now I have the stencil on my jelly plate. So I'm going to put this somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to put this. I guess I'm just going to lay it right over here. Okay, so I could wait for this to dry. I probably should, but I don't have to. I'm going to get, just because I've made such a mess, I'm going to just get a different sheet of palette paper since we're working with the jelly plate. And then I also want to have just a little piece of paper off to the side that I can roll off my excess paint. And well, Cheryl, I hope that this is going to get it out of the package. And that would be amazing. And that's what I thought that we could just encourage each other to do, right? Is get out our supplies and play and find different ways to use them. So I've got to find my paint here. This is what happens to me. Does this happen to you? You start out and you're all, or, oh, I've got something in my throat. Excuse me. You start out and you're doing so well, and then you all of a sudden the mess just spreads out, because then that's how it goes, right? All right, so I've got this going here, and I think these will make great collage backgrounds for encaustic, but I also think that it is you know, just fun regardless. All right. All right, so let's just make a little bit of a green. And I'm not going to do my colors too much. So I'm going to go right over this. I'm going to just start spreading that color. I'm going to just roll it onto my jelly plate. I want to be able to see my stencil design behind it. Okay, and then let's just make it a little fun and get a little bit, we'll just kind of do a little bit on here. If that other is dry, it's not going to go too much, but we'll just do a little bit of distressing kind of in these areas. So what you put on first is going to be front and center, and then I'm just going to roll off the excess paint onto here, and I'm already starting, I'll use that piece as well. And yes, it does happen. It absolutely happens. So let's just do this on a piece of, let's try the deli paper. Let's try that. All right, so this is a deli paper or a rice paper. I think they call it mulberry paper. And so I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to press with my hands. A lot of times you're going to want to let your design dry, but we're not doing that because we are doing a live and we are just practicing with some different ways to do this. I can lift up a little bit, and I think I'm going to end up getting, because of the texture on this one, I'm going to get a lot of distressing on this. And then this is the fun part. I'll let you see first, because I'll pull towards me instead of away. And so I'm getting a really distressed print. And I think it's because of the texture on this, but let's do this again. Let's go ahead and make that other green, and we're going to go ahead and pick up this paint. So we're going to pull a second print from this, okay? And I got a little bit of paper right there. So I'm going to go over this. Just like this. And I'm going to fill in. And what's really cool is those marks where it pulled up the paint all together. I'm going to go ahead and roll that off. Let's do a piece of copy paper. All right, so we're going to put that down. And I'm going to use my hands again. And let's see how that is. Again, if you let it dry a little bit, you're going to get a cleaner print for sure. But we're going to get another print out of this. Just like that. And no print is exactly the same. So we got that on this first print, and then we got this one on the second print. And I think it's fun with all the distressing and all the lines going through it. So let's say we can even use this, and we can do something just a little bit different. So I'm going to set that over to dry. And so for this one, I think what I want to do is let's use our dauber. I think, let's see, what do we want to do? We can, yeah, let's use, I don't know, let's use another, oh, I'm trying to decide. Let's do something like this. Let's show how we can take something back and away. So if we've laid out our paint and we want to have something else there, we can do this. So let's take some of our blue and let's make this, let's do this. Let's pull it this way. I'm just going to go right on in here, just using this bit. And let's just, that green will be on the top. That kind of teal color will be on the top. Now, sometimes you can put your paint right on the jelly plate, and that's definitely doable. But let's do a little bit of a stamping. So this is like a little Dollar Tree wooden die cut that I've picked up. And let's just do some stamping of this. So it's picking up my paint. And then we'll add another color to this. So I'm just gently, I don't want to ruin my jelly plate, but I want to get this image on here. So I'm basically creating that negative space. And again, this is just a little die cut from the Dollar Tree. It came in a package of leaves and flowers and things like that. And I thought, oh, that would be a fun image to do. And so that this shows up, let's go with something a little bit brighter. So I'm going to put a little yellow on my jelly plate. I can squeeze it out just like this. I don't need too much, but I want you to be able to see how we can use our jelly plate and create negative space and fill it in. So I may need a little more paint. I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit. Okay, let's get another piece of paper. Let's see if we can do this one on a book page. Okay, I'm going to lay this down, lay my book page down. I can brayer over the back of it a little bit and have it make really good contact here. Okay, let's see how we're doing. It's a little more delicate. Oops. Feel it ripping, so I want to be really careful with it. I'm going to slowly pull it up. I get a little impatient, y'all. And so I think that's a fun print because now we have those little areas where we created the negative space and now they show through in this as well. So I think that's a fun one on the book page. So let's just do a, let's do one more of this one. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to show you on that. And then I'm going to show you some examples of papers. Let's do one where we have this, and just like this stencil here, we're going to go and we're going to lay a stencil. I'm going to leave this on here, and let's just do a little bit of a black. Again, it's not so much for aesthetics as it is that we're just looking at the different ways that we can layer a print. And so this time I'm going to roll this over just like this. And it's going to go in some of the areas. It's going to be lighter and darker. So this is what I mean. You might have to keep going over your gel plate. And so I'm going to lift that up, and I've got that color there. And now I want to put a different color in. I'll go ahead and use that black, and we'll do a little bit of our Windsor blue again, and we'll make that, and we'll add a little white to that as well. So it's kind of making a little bit of a gray and the blue here. Okay. I'm just going to do this fun, just this fun kind of color here. All right. So I'm going to go over and then I'll show you how I clean my jelly plate. And then I'm going to show you some examples of other things that you can do without a jelly plate to make your own papers in addition to just painting. So let's do another one of these. I'm just going to lay that down. And I'm going to just kind of go over my paper and make really good contact. And again, if you let it dry a few minutes, if you have more patience than I do today, you can let it dry, and you're going to get a lot more of your paint on print. All right, let's do this one. So I'm going to lift slowly. It really does need to dry. It definitely did better on the other side. And that's because you really do just want to let that dry. Okay, but now we've got our black stenciling showing through. We've got a lot of the color left over from the other. And then to clean this plate, we can just, I like to just use a little bit. You could use a baby wipe, but I like to even try to maybe get a little something out of this. So I put some white paint, and a lot of times if you do this first, you can pull a lot of it up with the white paint. I don't know why, but a lot of it will. And then maybe we'll be lucky and we'll get something fun out of this one as well. Okay. Again, just another piece of printer paper. I hope I went all the way to the edge. Okay. And then I'm going to show you the other papers. So I'm just going to make some good contact with that and see, it really does need to dry on this. I think this is why we do this on a pre-recorded and not live. But let's just go ahead. You can also use baby wipes to do this. So I'll just take a baby wipe and wipe my paint off. And if your jelly plate gets a little bit stained, it's not a problem. It doesn't take away from the effectiveness of your plate at all. But I do like to clean it. You don't have to. You could just pull a print from it when you get started the next time and go from there. But you can just use a baby wipe, a few of them, and get all of your paint off and clean that up. Okay, so I will clean this as soon as we are done here. So what I wanted to show you is that in addition to paint, some of the other ways that I really enjoy making papers are with simple things like this is a piece. Here are some examples. This is mulberry paper that I used a rubber stamp on. And I just did this with, this is the China Blue ink by IOD, and I just stamped the paper. And so here are a couple of examples of that on the mulberry paper. Here's a script. Here are here's some text, and then another little design. I had a small stamp, but I liked this. So for small projects, I thought that would be fun. Here's just a little mark making that I did with some paint and a little tube. This is an example of running a little bit of distressed paint through the stencil. And here, this was just done by using a scraper and adding that. And I'll show you how I really actually love that effect. You can see bits of it when it shows up. You can see bits of this paper right up in here, and it just adds a little bit of texture up in here when it's applied. So it's a fun way to do it. And I also did this in different colors. So I like to do a dark blue, and this is a taupe. So this is this is the stone gray by Iron Orchid Designs. I did like more of a large damask, another little small script, and more little just marks and things like that. And then this is that same stamp that I used just in a different color. So it gives me a lot of options in that. And then for the tissue papers, what I did, I'll show you some of these. I showed you a few, but this is all just using these same 3 colors. So this is more of a light value. This is a darker. This has more of the green in it, and this was done with that recycled stencil. This is, again, another kind of distressed print. This is on the deli paper, so it's also a little transparent. And this was just layering. This was taking up a print where I had pulled paint off the paper, and then I just kept working with it. Here's one that is just done with dots. I happen to like a lot of circles. And then this is just more of that stamping that I did. I basically just take my stamp, ink it up, put it on my paper, let it dry, and then I have it available. Here's another damask. This is another texture piece with the circles that you can see that I did with the molding paste. And so I think of the papers that we made, I really like this one a lot. And I always love the one with that number stencil. So I definitely can keep the ones that didn't turn out exactly the way that I want and just do something else with them. So I could stamp on these, like I could do some white stamping. I could do so many things. So that is what I've got. Oh, I also wanted to share that sometimes it's nice just to have text when you're working on things that you can layer over something else. And so sometimes I'll just do the stenciling just on the tissue paper or that. And then this one is, I really love how the colors came out. And again, it's just the blue. I chose that Windsor blue and the cadmium yellow and a black and a white. And so what I want to do is really encourage you to just find things around, like the basting brush, a stencil brush, you know, a little dauber, if you have a palette knife, something like that, just to get those things out. And you don't have to do a lot of these. And again, I think I showed you, you don't have to have a jelly plate to make your own papers. And so what we'll do starting next week is we'll start to, I'm going to show you how to get multiple uses out of your paper, the things that they can be, you know, applied to. and we'll do some projects too. And don't be scared, Cheryl. By the end of this, I don't want you to be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's a little bit of paint and some paper. That's it. And so just I don't know, get scrap paper. If you were about to throw, something that didn't print right out of the printer, you can get that out and don't throw it away. Just use it and use that to practice on, because you really can do this on so many types of paper. I didn't show you doing this on like paper bag paper, but we can do that, or tea bag paper. You could use coffee filters. You could do this on anything. So just think of it as something to have fun with. Cheryl, I'm going to challenge you to just get out a couple of colors and black and white and just play. Just play, 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 play. Get out a sponge, do something like that. Just start making marks, a tissue paper roll, whatever you want to do. Just get out there and give it a shot. And you said, what did you say? I've got to get that. You said, oh, don't be scared. Okay. So, so just have fun, give it a try. And I hope you'll join me next week. So I'm going to show you the different ways that you can take something that you've made that you really like, and how you can extend the use of just this one single piece of paper. And then what we'll do is start to make more traditional projects. Yes, there will be some collage, but I'm not going to start with that, because I think that's what you all expect with decorative papers. And so I want to just show you a couple of other things that you can do with these papers that might be something that you already do. Hi, Amanda, how are you? And you have issues with tissue tearing. Any tips? Amanda, can you please tell me if that is on your jelly plate? If it is, I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm thinking you might mean that it is on your jelly plate. So let's just do, before I go, let me do this for Amanda. All right, let's do this. So let's take a piece of tissue paper. I've got a little piece right here. So I'm going to get a piece of tissue paper. And yes, there is a little bit of a trick to it. I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Yes, on your jelly plate. All right, let's just do it. Let's just do I'm just going to do something simple. I'm just going to put some paint on. Okay. And maybe I'll do something else. Let's just put some color on this and I'll show you. And this is the same trick for the, my papers coming up. So I've kind of extended the use of that. I'm going to need some more paint. All right. So I'm going to show you on the deli paper as well as the tissue paper. Okay. Because what happens is that once it hits a little bit of moisture, it really wants to wrinkle up. That might be what you're talking about, or tearing, or maybe it's when you're lifting it. I'm not really sure. All right. So let's just go ahead and do something. We'll just do a little negative space so we can see this. Okay. I'll just do a little bit on here. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? And then I'll just come over here, because I said I was just going to put paint on it, but I can't. All right, because maybe this will end up being my very favorite print of all. Who knows? All right, so let's just go ahead and add another color so that we can see that. I need to come to a different place on here. All right, let's just go over this. We'll just go kind of randomly on this. Okay, so on the tissue paper, I hover a little bit. I like my tissue to be bigger than my plate if possible. I hover like this, and then I kind of just gently smooth it. I can lift it a little bit. It's going to change the print a little bit. I don't let it dry too long on the tissue paper. I don't have any paint on that edge. So I'm going to push down with my hands. And then really the biggest thing is getting a full right up at the top. And then you just have to really pull slowly. You kind of want to get an even pull if you can. And you've just got to be patient and pull slowly. If you want to go from this side, again, you just want to pull, try to have as even a pressure as you can. And just go super slowly, because as long as your tissue is wet, we all know it's super fragile. I actually, Cheryl, I print on both sides. I don't even pay attention to if I'm on the shiny side or the dull side. I just don't. And I haven't come across something where I've said to myself, oh no, I, printed on the wrong side. So no tears, a little bit of wrinkling in here where that, but the same thing can happen with your deli paper. So, yes, Cheryl, I don't pay attention to that. Maybe I should, but I really don't on when I'm doing this kind of thing. So let's just do one more little print. I'm going to show you the deli paper. I'm just going to put some yellow down. The deli paper actually, to me, is the trickiest for getting the, because it's got a lot of potential to wrinkle, and it does have a slick side. And so it doesn't always, it really, really, really wants to wrinkle. And so for that, I'm going to get out my the same little tool that we use to decoupage. I like to use this when I'm laying down my jelly paper. So let's go ahead and do this one again. I don't think I'm going to get much of a print off of this. Ugh, I'm not getting much. Let's just do some stippling. No, that's not going to do it either. Anything like, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll just take this. Let's see if we can get some dots out of this by lifting some of this up. I don't know what we're going to do. But let's just experiment and try. And they're not even in a, in any kind of pattern. So let me get a sheet of deli paper. So this is a slick paper, right? And so on this one, if I were to lay it down in the wet paint, then what happens is it immediately wants to stick. And maybe I don't want it to. So I just use my fingers at the bottom to kind of straighten this out. And then I take my little squeegee tool and kind of like I would with decoupage paper, I use this to smooth it down on my jelly plate. I like that it's soft. You could also use plastic wrap for this. I like that this is soft and doesn't have any texture to it. The felt tip on this. And so now I've got a smooth, it's pretty smooth. And so that's what I like to do with this. And then I feel like I can, and if I get a little bit down here where it didn't, I can kind of come down here, but it really just wasn't wet there, right? So that's how I like to do the really slick type of papers. And again, I'm just going to pull slowly. And we did get some fun little dots and marks in here. So I'm just pulling. Right, and so on this one you can see, because we smoothed it, I do have those like little marks that I made, but I don't have a lot of wrinkles in my paper. And so I'm going to just pull this paint real quick if I can, pull as much as I can off. I don't know if I'll get anything. I'm not going to really get anything off of that, so I'll just have to clean that. But Amanda, I hope that that helps you and answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't, and I'll try to come up with something to help you with that. So Anyway, guys, get out there and make some papers. Okay. And then, because I think when you see some of the projects that you're going to be able to make and the things that you can do to extend your time and effort, by creating some really beautiful things with it, then I think that you'll be glad that you got it out and, gave it a try. So, um, please do. And anyway, so I will see you back here again next Monday. I know it's Memorial Day weekend. I'm not expecting really anybody to be here, but I'd love it if you were. And we're going to get started on the next piece. And then I do have a new YouTube video coming out on Wednesday. It's with the IOD transfers. And so I hope you enjoy that. I want to thank you guys so much for being here, for following along, and for giving me grace when you think, what is she up to now? What is she doing? Oh Lord, she's squirrely. But there really is a method to my madness, and I'm excited to share that with all of you. So anyway, thank you wherever you are. I hope you are well, and I appreciate you. And have a great night, a great week. I'm going to see my granddaughter, so I'm pretty excited about that. My husband and I are going to get to love on her for a little bit and help take care of her while her parents are working for a few days. And anyway, thanks again. I'll see you soon. And let me know if you have any questions. All right, everybody. Good night.